At the family dinner, I saw my husband crush something white between his fingers and stir it into my bowl. For 1 second I could not breathe. Daniel smiled across the table like nothing had happened. His sister Linda was laughing at something our grandson said. The candles were flickering. The roast chicken sat in the middle of the table, still warm with rosemary and lemon tucked under the skin. And there I was, 62 years old, sitting in my own dining room, staring at a bowl of soup I suddenly did not trust. My heart dropped, but I stayed quiet. That is the strange thing about fear when you are older. It does not always make you scream. Sometimes it makes you very still. I looked at Daniel's hands. Clean nails. Gold wedding band. The same hands that had buttoned my coat when my arthritis acted up. The same hands that had held mine at church when we sang the old hymns. Now those hands rested calmly beside his plate. "Margaret," he said, "you all right?" Everyone looked at me. I smiled. "I'm fine," I said. It came out so steady that even I almost believed it. The dinner was supposed to be simple. Sunday evening, family around the table. My stepdaughter Rachel had brought green beans in a casserole dish. Linda brought a pecan pie from the bakery near the pharmacy. Daniel insisted on making his potato soup because he said mine made the kitchen too messy. We had done this once a month since Daniel and I got married 4 years earlier. Not every family blends smoothly, especially not at our age. People come with history, habits, grown children, old grief. But I tried. I had been a school teacher for 31 years. I believed most things could be softened with patience, good manners, and enough coffee. That night, though, patience felt like a thin blanket in winter. Daniel kept watching me. Not openly, not in a way anyone else would notice. But I noticed. He had been doing that for weeks. If I paused before answering a question, his eyes sharpened. If I misplaced my reading glasses, he sighed just a little. If I forgot whether I had watered the fern by the window, he said, "You already asked me that, honey," in that gentle voice people use when they want to sound kind in front of others. I told myself he was worried. At our age, worry can look like love. But worry can also become a room with no doors. Linda sat to my right that evening, wearing her navy cardigan and pearl earrings. She was Daniel's older sister by 2 years, though she carried herself like she had raised him. She always had an opinion ready before dessert. "You look tired, Margaret," she said. "I'm all right. You've been saying that a lot lately." Daniel gave her a quick look. Not angry. Warning. That was when I knew they had talked about me before I came into the room. I lowered my spoon. The soup smelled normal, creamy, peppery, a little too much onion like Daniel always made it. But I had seen him. I had seen his thumb press down on something small and pale. I had seen the powder fall. I had seen him stir. Across the table, Rachel asked her son if he had finished his science project. The boy started explaining volcanoes and baking soda. Everyone laughed when he said his teacher almost had to evacuate the classroom. That was the moment. Everyone turned toward him. Daniel looked away. Linda leaned toward Rachel. I moved slowly. No sudden motion, no drama. I reached for the breadbasket with my left hand, and with my right slid my bowl a few inches toward Linda's place setting. Her bowl sat near the edge of her plate untouched except for 1 spoonful. I switched them. Just like that. A small white bowl for another small white bowl. No one saw. Or if they did, no one understood. My hands did not shake until after I folded my napkin back across my lap. Linda turned back toward the table. She picked up her spoon. I wanted to stop her. That is the part I still think about. I wanted to put my hand on her wrist and say, "Don't." But then I looked at Daniel. He was watching me again, and something cold moved through me. If I warned Linda, he would know I had seen him. If I said nothing, I would know what he had done. It was a terrible little courtroom inside my chest, and I was both judge and defendant. Linda took 1 spoonful, then another. Daniel began talking about the weather, how the first frost might come early that year. His voice was too even, too ordinary. 5 minutes later, Linda's spoon slipped from her hand. It struck the bowl with a sharp little clink. Everyone stopped. Linda blinked hard. "Goodness," she whispered. Rachel leaned forward. "Aunt Linda." Linda pressed 2 fingers to her temple. "I'm suddenly very sleepy." Daniel's face changed. Not much, but enough. The color left him first. Then his mouth opened slightly like a man who had heard a sound from the basement in an empty house. He looked at Linda. Then he looked at my bowl. Then at me. I held his gaze. For the first time all evening I did not smile. "Daniel," I said quietly, "is there something you need to tell us?" The room went silent in a way families understand. Not the silence of peace, the the silence of a wall cracking. Rachel stood halfway up from her chair. "What's going on?" Daniel swallowed. He looked old suddenly, older than 66. His shoulders dropped and his hand went to his pocket as though searching for something that might save him. Linda's head lowered toward her chest. I pushed back my chair. "Call her doctor," I said to Rachel, "and bring me Daniel's coat." Daniel whispered my name. "Margaret." I did not answer, because in that moment I was not his confused wife. I was not the woman he corrected in front of company. I was not the person everyone had been quietly studying. I was a woman who had seen enough, and I wanted the truth. Daniel did not follow Rachel into the kitchen. He stayed at the table, still, silent. Linda had not collapsed. She was awake, just strangely heavy-eyed, leaning back in her chair as if someone had pulled half the energy from her body. Rachel brought her water. "Maybe your blood sugar dropped," she said gently. Linda nodded, though she looked unconvinced. I stood by the counter and watched Daniel. He would not look at me now. That frightened me more than what I had seen him do, because guilt has a posture. And after 60 years of teaching children, meeting parents, and surviving one marriage before widowhood, I knew it when I saw it. "Margaret," Daniel finally said, "can we talk?" "Not yet." His eyes lifted. "Just briefly." There was hurt there, and fear. The fear unsettled me, because guilty people usually defend themselves. They explain. They deny. Daniel looked like a man waiting for a sentence. The dinner ended early. Rachel took Linda home. Our grandson hugged me before leaving. "See you next Sunday, Grandma Margaret." I smiled. Maybe sooner. The house became quiet after the door closed. Too quiet. Only the clock over the refrigerator kept moving. Tick, tick, tick. Daniel remained in the dining room collecting plates one at a time. Usually I would help. That night I sat in my armchair by the window. The same chair where I drank tea every morning and watched neighbors walk their dogs. Daniel finally came in. He held something in his hand. A small orange prescription bottle. My stomach tightened. He placed it on the coffee table. My name was on it. "Margaret Ellis." I stared. The room seemed to tilt. "Where did you get this?" His voice was low. "Dr. Halpern." I looked up immediately. Our doctor. Number. The word landed hard. A specialist. My fingers went cold. "When?" 3 months ago. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes betrayal sounds ridiculous before it sounds painful. 3 months ago. He nodded. "And you forgot." His face changed the second he said it. He knew. He knew what those words sounded like. I stood. "No," I said quietly. "I didn't forget." He looked down. "You never told me." Silence. Long. Heavy. Finally he sat across from me. His shoulders curved inward. I was trying to help. I almost hated that sentence. Not because it was cruel. Because it was sincere. The worst damage in families often comes wrapped in good intentions. "What exactly did you put in my soup?" "Memory medication." I stared. He continued before I could speak. "Low dose, nothing dangerous." "Then why hide it?" "You wouldn't take it." "Because I didn't know it existed." His eyes closed. That small movement hurt more than shouting would have. "I thought you were slipping." The room became very still. Outside, someone started a lawnmower 2 houses down. Normal life. Ordinary sounds. Meanwhile, my marriage was quietly changing shape. "What do you mean, slipping?" He hesitated. Then, "You forgot the church fundraiser. One time, you asked me twice what day Rachel was visiting. I was tired. You lost your purse at Kroger. I left it in the cart." His voice dropped further. "You asked me the same question 3 times last month." I crossed my arms. "And that means dementia." "Number." "Then what?" He looked at me. Really looked. Not at my face. At something inside me. "Fear," he whispered. I blinked. He continued. "My mother forgot everything." I said nothing. "She forgot birthdays first." Pause. "Then names." Another pause. "One day she looked at me and asked where her son was." His voice broke on the last word. I had known his mother died from Alzheimer's. I had not known he still lived inside that hospital room. The anger inside me shifted. Not disappeared. Shifted. Fear had been sitting beside it all along. Still, fear did not excuse secrecy. "Daniel," I said softly, "you do not get to treat me without my consent." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." He looked away. That silence told me more than anything. He truly believed he was protecting me, which meant this had been going on longer. How many appointments? He hesitated. My chest tightened. How many? 4. I felt something drop inside me. 4. 4 visits. 4 conversations, 4 moments about my own mind. And I had been absent from everyone. Who went? He swallowed. Me. Anyone else? Another pause. Linda knew. I closed my eyes. Of course. The comments. The looks. You look tired. You've been saying that a lot lately. They were watching me, measuring me, studying me. Not out of cruelty, out of concern. That somehow made it worse, because pity leaves softer fingerprints. But it still leaves bruises. I went upstairs without another word. Our bedroom looked exactly the same. Blue quilt, lamp on my side, my reading glasses beside the novel I had not finished. Normal? Everything normal. I opened my dresser. Inside was my journal. I had started writing again after retirement. Nothing dramatic. Grocery lists. Thoughts. Weather. Things people my age quietly record because memory matters more when years feel precious. I flipped backward. September. August. July. Every page neat. Dates clear. Appointments listed. Events remembered. No confusion. No missing weeks. No empty spaces. My hands trembled. Then I found something else. Folded between pages. Insurance paperwork. Neurology referral. Evaluation notes. My name. A date. And one line circled in blue pen. Spouse reports increasing forgetfulness. Spouse reports. Not patient reports. Not observed symptoms. Spouse reports. I sat on the edge of the bed. Downstairs I heard Daniel moving slowly in the kitchen. Cabinet opening. Water running. A man cleaning dishes. A husband. A frightened son. A person who loved me. And a person who had quietly begun building a case against my memory. I looked at the paper again. For the first time since dinner, a different question entered my mind. What if this was bigger than soup? What if the pills were only the beginning? And what else had I missed while everyone else watched me? I closed the journal. Tomorrow I would speak to Linda. Not as enemies. Not yet. As witnesses. Because someone in this family knew more than I did. And I intended to find out. The next morning I called Linda before I lost my nerve. She answered on the 4th ring. Margaret. Her voice sounded rough. Are you all right? I asked. There was a pause. I should be asking you that. I stood in my kitchen looking at the clean bowl Daniel had set in the drying rack. He had washed it twice. I heard him do it the night before long after I went upstairs. I need to talk to you, I said. Another pause. Then Linda sighed. I know. We met at the little diner near the post office. Not the family house, not my kitchen. Someplace public enough to keep us civil but quiet enough for the truth. The diner had red vinyl booths, framed pictures of local high school teams, and a pie case by the register. It smelled like coffee, bacon, grease, and old conversations. Linda was already there when I arrived. Without her pearls and sharp comments, she looked like an older woman who had been scared. She had ordered coffee but had not touched it. I slid into the booth across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The waitress came by. Coffee. Yes, please. When she left, Linda folded both hands around her cup. I owe you an apology. I studied her face. That depends on what you're apologizing for. She winced. Fair enough. I knew Daniel was worried about you. I gathered that. But I didn't know he was putting medicine in your food. Her eyes lifted quickly. I swear to you, Margaret, I did not know that. I wanted to believe her. I did not want to believe anyone. Both feelings sat inside me. What did you know? Linda looked toward the window. Across the street, a man in a seed company cap unlocked the hardware store. Normal American morning? A town waking up. And 2 older women deciding how much damage honesty would do. Daniel called me in July, she said. He sounded not like himself. What did he say? That you were forgetting things. One church fundraiser. My purse at Kroger. A few questions. She nodded slowly. That's what he said at first. At first. Linda pressed her lips together. He said you were hiding it. Hiding what? Confusion. The word stung. He said sometimes you looked lost in your own kitchen. My jaw tightened. He said you had stopped driving at night because you were afraid of getting turned around. I stopped driving at night because headlights bother my eyes. Half the people our age do that. I know. But she had not known then. He said you got angry when he brought it up, she continued. He said you were proud. That you'd been a teacher too long to admit you needed help. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because Daniel had taken true pieces of me and arranged them into a stranger. Yes, I was proud. Yes, I had been a teacher. Yes, I hated being fussed over. But none of that meant I was disappearing. Did you tell him to take me to that doctor? Linda looked down. I told him to get help. With me. With someone. That is not the same thing. I know that now. Her voice cracked. I thought I was helping both of you. Linda Harper was not an easy woman. She corrected recipes and asked personal questions at baby showers. I had spent 4 years believing she disliked me. Maybe she had. Maybe I had made that easy. But sitting across from her, I saw something else. A woman who loved her brother so much she believed his fear before she heard my voice. Why didn't you call me? I asked. Her eyes filled. Because Daniel asked me not to. And that was enough. Number. She swallowed. But I wanted it to be. The waitress returned with coffee. We both went quiet until she left. You need to understand something, Linda said. I'm listening. Daniel doesn't just fear illness. He fears watching someone fade while he stands there helpless. I looked away. My mother was not easy at the end, Linda said. People remember her as sweet. She was sweet. But Alzheimer's made her frightened, suspicious, sometimes cruel. I said nothing. He was the one there most nights, not me. That sentence carried shame. Heavy and old. I had children, she continued. A job, excuses. He had fewer excuses, or maybe he just loved her harder. Her mouth trembled. He changed her sheets, fed her soup, sat beside her when she screamed for a husband who had been dead 10 years. The diner noise faded. Silverware. Coffee. A laugh from the counter. All of it moved somewhere far away. I didn't know, I said. No, he doesn't tell it. Then he turned that fear on me. Linda nodded. Tears slipped down her face. Yes. The honesty hurt. But it helped too. For the first time, the betrayal had a shape. This was not a husband trying to destroy me. This was a husband so haunted by one loss that he tried to outrun another by taking away my choice. Still wrong. Still humiliating. Still mine to confront. Linda reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. I am sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry because I talked about you like a problem before I talked to you like a person. After a moment, I placed my hand over hers. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But contact. That was enough for one morning. What happens now? She asked. I took the referral papers from my purse and laid them on the table between us. Now, I said, we stop letting Daniel be the only narrator of my life. Linda breathed out slowly. For the first time since I had known her, she looked at me as an equal. I'll help you, she said. I nodded. But as I folded the papers back into my purse, I knew help would not be enough. Daniel had built this from fear. To undo it, I would have to walk straight into the room where that fear began. And I suspected it had his mother's name on the door. 3 days later, I drove to Rosewood Memory Care. I did not tell Daniel where I was going. I simply said I had errands. He looked up from the newspaper. Need me to come? Number. He opened his mouth. Closed it again. That small hesitation told me everything. The old Daniel would have insisted. The new Daniel was beginning to understand that I had stepped outside the circle he built around me. Rosewood sat at the edge of town beside a church and a line of maple trees already turning orange. The building itself was gentle. Soft brick. White trim. Benches near the entrance. The kind of place designed to look less frightening than it felt. I parked and sat in the car for a minute. My hand stayed on the steering wheel. I almost left. Part of me wanted the anger back. Anger is easier. Cleaner. Fear asks more of you. Inside, a receptionist with silver glasses greeted me. I'm looking for records, I said quietly. Not medical records, just history. She smiled kindly. Family history. I nodded. My husband's mother stayed here years ago. She checked the system. Mrs. Eleanor Ellis. Yes. The name felt strange in my mouth. A woman I had never met. A woman already shaping my marriage from beyond the grave. She was here about 18 months, the receptionist said gently. Can I sit in the garden? Of course. The garden sat behind the building. Small. Peaceful. Bird feeder. Wooden benches. Late roses. An elderly man pushed his wife's wheelchair along the path. He stopped every few steps to point at flowers. She did not react. He kept pointing anyway. I had to look away. Daniel had done this. Not here. Not with me. But in his mind. He had already started saying goodbye. I sat down. A nurse came outside carrying tea. She looked around my age. You visiting someone? Not exactly. She smiled. Sometimes those are the hardest visits. I laughed softly. You may be right. We spoke only a few minutes. Enough for me to learn she had worked there 22 years. Enough for me to ask. Do families get afraid before anything is actually wrong? She looked at me carefully. All the time. Even when symptoms are small. Especially then. I turned toward her. Why? Because uncertainty leaves room for imagination. She sat beside me. I've seen husbands panic because their wives forgot a birthday. Pause. Wives panic because their husbands repeat stories. Another pause. People who already lost someone often see ghosts before they see facts. The sentence settled inside me. Ghosts before facts. Daniel had not been treating my memory. He had been treating his nightmare. That evening I finally opened the box in our attic. The one marked, Mom. I had seen it before. Never touched it. Inside, photo albums, hospital bracelets, cards, a folded church bulletin, and a notebook. Daniel's handwriting. I sat on the attic floor. Dust floated through the late sunlight. Page 1. Mom forgot the coffee pot today. Page 4. She asked me why Dad was late. Dad died 8 years ago. Page 12. She called me young man, smiled after. I went to the car and cried. My throat tightened. Page 21. I promised myself I would never let this happen again if I could stop it. I stopped reading, because suddenly I understood something terrible. He had made a promise no human being could keep. Never again. Never lose someone. Never be helpless. Never watch memory disappear. Those promises always break. And when they break, people break with them. I heard footsteps below. Daniel. He was home. For a moment I considered putting everything back. Pretending. Waiting. Old habits. Older women become experts at smoothing rough edges. But smoothing is not healing. I carried the notebook downstairs. Daniel stood in the kitchen unpacking groceries. Milk. Soup cans. Bananas. Ordinary life. I set the notebook on the counter. He froze. His face lost color immediately. You went into the attic. Yes. Silence. He touched the cover. Not opening it. Just touching. Like someone reaching toward a wound. I never wanted you to read that. I know. His shoulders dropped. I was 29 when she got sick. I waited. At first it was funny. Small smile. She hid her purse in the freezer once. His smile disappeared. Then it stopped being funny. He sat down. I missed work. Pause. Lost friends. Pause. My marriage almost ended. I blinked. You never told me that. There are a lot of things I never told you. His voice was tired now. Not defensive. Simply old. I kept thinking if I watched closely enough I could stop it next time. Daniel. I know. He looked up. Eyes wet. I know I crossed a line. I sat across from him. You crossed several. He nodded. No argument. No excuses. Just acceptance. Then quietly. When you forgot the fundraiser, I was exhausted. I know now. When I lost my purse, I know. When I asked the same question, he looked down. I heard my mother. That broke something in me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But certainty. He had not seen me. He had seen her. And I had been living with a ghost neither of us invited. Outside the kitchen window, leaves moved in the wind. October arriving. Time doing what time always does. Taking. Changing. Leaving people to decide what love means afterward. I reached for the notebook. Closed it gently. We're not done, I said. Number. We still need truth. Yes. And I'm taking control of my own appointments. He nodded again. For the first time since the dinner, he did not look frightened. Just sad. Sometimes sadness is progress. Because fear protects itself. Sadness listens. The next morning I made my own appointment. I did it from the porch with a cup of coffee beside me and the phone balanced between my shoulder and ear. No Danielle. No Linda. No one speaking for me. The receptionist asked for my date of birth, insurance information, and reason for visit. I said I need a second opinion about my memory. The words felt strange. Not shameful. Just serious. When she offered an opening 2 weeks away, I almost accepted it. Then the old teacher in me, the woman who had spent decades telling children to use their voices, sat up straighter. Do you have anything sooner? She checked. There's a cancellation Thursday morning. I'll take it. Daniel was in the kitchen when I came back inside. He looked at the phone in my hand. You made a call. I did. To whom? My doctor. He flinched a little at the word my. Good. Not because I wanted to punish him. Because sometimes a person needs to hear a door being locked from the other side. I'm going alone, I said. His mouth tightened. I could drive you. I can drive myself. Margaret the First only. I know what you only did. That stopped him. The house went quiet. I did not raise my voice. I had no interest in becoming the loud, unreasonable woman in someone else's story. I had lived long enough to know how quickly older women get called dramatic when they finally stop swallowing pain. So I spoke calmly. That is over now. He nodded. Once. Small. Defeated. But not angry. That surprised me. For the next 2 weeks I began a quiet kind of revenge. Not cruel revenge. Not revenge that breaks dishes or ruins reputations. Mine was smaller, cleaner. I stopped asking Daniel where things were. I found them myself. I drove to Kroger alone. I put my purse in the cart, then tied a blue scarf around the handle so I could not miss it. I wrote appointments on the kitchen calendar, but I also wrote them in my own notebook. I called my old friend Carol from church and asked if she still walked at the mall on Tuesdays. She laughed. Only when my knees forgive me. Mine are negotiating, I said. We met anyway. For the first time in months, I walked beside someone who did not study me for signs of decline. Carol talked about her grandson's wedding, the price of eggs, and how the choir director still could not keep tempo. Normal talk. Blessed talk. Talk that did not measure me. Afterward, we sat in the food court with coffee in paper cups. You look lighter, she said. I didn't know I looked heavy. She gave me the kind of look only old friends can give. Margaret, you've looked like someone was standing on your shadow. I almost cried. Not because she was wrong. Because she had seen me without turning me into a diagnosis. That Thursday, I went to the specialist. Dr. Elaine Whitaker had short gray hair, kind eyes, and no patience for family shortcuts. I liked her immediately. She asked questions directly to me. Not about me, to me. What brought you in today, Mrs. Ellis? My husband believed I was having memory problems. And what do you believe? I took a breath. I believe I have been stressed, watched, corrected, and frightened into doubting myself. She lowered her pen. That is a very clear answer. For nearly 2 hours, she tested me. Dates, words, shapes, stories to repeat later. Basic reasoning. Questions about sleep, grief, medication, diet, mood, family stress. At the end, she folded her hands. I see no evidence today of dementia. The room blurred. I pressed a tissue under one eye before the tear could fall. She continued. That does not mean you ignore changes. Everyone should monitor memory as they age. But ordinary forgetfulness, stress, poor sleep, and anxiety can look alarming, especially to loved ones with past trauma. I nodded. What your husband did was not appropriate. My throat tightened. Thank you for saying that. It needs to be said. She handed me a printed summary. Take this home. I also recommend counseling. For both of you if he is willing. But separately at first. When I left the office, I sat in my car and read the summary twice. No evidence today of dementia. I did not feel young. I did not feel victorious. I felt returned to myself. That evening, I placed the paper on the kitchen table. Daniel was reading the mail. He looked at it, then at me. What is it? My evaluation. His fingers shook slightly as he picked it up. I watched his face as he read. Relief came first. Then shame. Shame is a quiet thing when it is real. He lowered the paper. Thank God, he whispered. Number. His eyes lifted. I sat across from him. Thank me for going. Thank Dr. Whitaker for listening. Thank Linda for helping me find the records. But do not thank God as if this just happened while you stood there innocent. He absorbed that. Slowly, painfully. You're right. I know. He almost smiled. Then did not. What do you want me to do? There it was. The question he should have asked months earlier. I folded my hands. I want every bottle, every paper, every phone number, every appointment you made about me. He nodded. I want you to call Dr. Halpern's office and remove yourself as the contact for my care unless I put you back. His face tightened. But he nodded again. I want counseling. Together. Eventually, first you go alone. He looked down. Yes. And I want you to tell Rachel and Linda the truth. His eyes closed. That one hurt him most. Good. Not because I wanted him humiliated. Because secrecy grows best in rooms where everyone protects the secret. He whispered, all right. The next Sunday we did not host dinner. I sat on the porch instead, wrapped in a cardigan, watching yellow leaves gather against the steps. Daniel came outside and stood beside me. He did not ask if I was cold. He did not adjust my blanket. He did not hover. After a while, he said I made the call. I nodded. And, I start counseling Wednesday. I looked at him then. He seemed smaller, but more honest. For the first time, I felt the strange satisfaction of revenge done right. Not revenge that destroys. Revenge that restores order. He had made me feel like a woman disappearing. So I made him watch me come back. Daniel came home from his first counseling session carrying a paper bag from the bakery. Blueberry muffins. My favorite. He set them on the counter like a peace offering from another century. I looked at them, then at him. You remembered. A sad smile crossed his face. I remembered. The answer stayed with me all evening. Not because of the muffins. Because memory had become such a dangerous word in our house. Remembering used to mean anniversaries, recipes, old songs. Now it sounded like a medical chart, a warning, a test. We had turned ordinary aging into a courtroom, and neither of us had walked away untouched. Daniel poured coffee. He moved more slowly these days, not physically, emotionally, like a man afraid of stepping on broken glass he could not see. How was it, I asked. He looked surprised. The session. I nodded. He sat down. Long pause. Then, I talked about my mother. Of course he did. He wrapped both hands around his cup. I never realized how angry I still was. Angry at her. Number? His eyes lifted. At time. The answer settled between us. I understood that. Anyone over 60 understands that. You wake up one morning and realize time has quietly become the strongest person in the room. It takes parents, friends, strength, certainty. And someday it takes us. I thought if I watched carefully enough, he said softly, I could beat it. You can't. I know. You can love people. Pause. You can help people. Pause. You cannot outrun time. His eyes filled. I know that now. That night I went upstairs early. But sleep would not come. Around midnight I found Daniel sitting in the den. The old photo albums were open. His mother. Family trips. Christmas mornings. Hospital pictures. He was holding one photo with both hands. A woman in a yellow sweater. Smiling. Healthy. Before illness. I sat beside him. He did not hide the picture. She loved lemon pie, he said. I smiled faintly. Linda told me. She used to sing while cooking. Pause. Terribly. I laughed. He almost did too. Then his face folded. I failed her. Number. I did. Daniel. I got tired near the end. The confession came quietly, like something that had waited 20 years. I was exhausted. He stared at the photograph. One night she asked me the same question 12 times. His voice cracked. The 13th time? He stopped. I waited. I raised my voice. Silence. I was only loud for a second. Long pause. She cried. My chest hurt. I apologized. Pause. She forgot it happened. Another pause. I never did. There it was. Not fear. Not control. Guilt. Old guilt. Buried guilt. The kind that grows roots. You weren't cruel, I said gently. I felt cruel. That isn't the same thing. It was to me. He finally looked at me. When you forgot things? His eyes shone. I thought God was giving me another test. I took a breath. And you decided I wouldn't take it. He lowered his head. Yes. The honesty hurt. But it healed too. Because lies create shadows. Truth creates consequences. And consequences can be lived with. The next weekend, Rachel invited us over. No formal dinner. Just soup and sandwiches. Normal. Intentional. Linda was there. She looked nervous. Daniel looked worse. After everyone sat down, he cleared his throat. I need to say something. Rachel stopped pouring tea. Linda looked at her hands. Daniel turned toward them. I misjudged Margaret. Silence. I let my fear become control. Rachel stared. I made appointments without telling her. Linda closed her eyes. I involved people before I involved my wife. His voice shook. I was wrong. Nobody moved. The room felt very small. Rachel finally spoke. Dad. He looked up. You thought she was sick. I thought I was losing her. Rachel's eyes filled. Then she did something unexpected. She stood, walked around the table, and hugged him. Not because he deserved immediate forgiveness. Because he had finally stopped hiding. Linda cried openly now. I should have called Margaret, she whispered. Yes, I said gently. You should have. She nodded through tears. I know. I reached for her hand anyway. Not because pain vanished. Because pain had been seen. Older people understand this. Healing is rarely dramatic. It is often two damaged people sitting in a kitchen telling the truth 10 years too late. That evening, Daniel and I drove home in silence. Halfway there, he said, You never yelled. I looked out the window. Streetlights passing. Small houses. American flags on porches. Lives being lived quietly behind curtains. I wanted to, I admitted. Why didn't you? I smiled sadly. Because I wasn't trying to win. He swallowed. What were you trying to do? I looked at him. Come back. His eyes watered immediately. We reached home. The porch light glowed yellow. Ordinary. Warm. He opened the car door for me. Not because I needed help. Because he wanted to. Small difference. Big meaning. Before we went inside, he said softly, I think I spent 20 years grieving someone who was already gone. I touched his arm. And I think you almost lost someone who was still here. He closed his eyes. Yes. For the first time since that dinner, he did not argue. He simply accepted the truth. And acceptance, I was learning, was where reconciliation quietly began. Winter arrived quietly that year. No dramatic snowstorm. No movie moment. Just thin frost on the mailbox and mornings that asked for heavier sweaters. 3 months had passed since the dinner. 3 months since the bowl. 3 months since I looked across a family table and wondered if my husband had become a stranger. Life did not return to normal. I do not think real marriages ever return. They become something else, sometimes worse, sometimes wiser. Daniel kept going to counseling. Every Wednesday at 10. He no longer told me every detail afterward. That was new. He had stopped treating honesty like a report. Now it came when it was ready. One evening he sat beside me while I worked on my puzzle in the den. I talked about guilt today. I looked up. The old guilt. He nodded. And he smiled faintly. My counselor asked me something uncomfortable. That sounds expensive. He laughed. A real laugh. First one in weeks. She asked what my mother would say if she saw how I treated you. The puzzle piece in my hand stopped moving. What did you answer? He stared at the fire. I said she would probably smack the back of my head. I laughed despite myself. She sounds wonderful. She was. Pause. And difficult. Most wonderful people are. He looked at me then. Long enough to mean something. Thank you for staying. I set the puzzle piece down. I almost didn't. His face changed. Not shock. Recognition. He had known. I know. We sat quietly. The fire crackled. Outside, someone's dog barked down the street. Ordinary life again. Always ordinary life. That was where healing lived. Not in speeches. In Tuesdays. In grocery lists. In silence that no longer felt dangerous. The last Sunday dinner of the year happened at our house. My idea. Not because everything was fixed. Because avoiding life forever is another kind of fear. Rachel arrived first. Then Linda. Our grandson ran straight toward the cookies. Some traditions survive everything. The table looked familiar. Candles. Roast chicken. Soup. I noticed Daniel hesitate when he carried the bowls. He placed mine down carefully. Then stopped. Margaret. I looked up. Would you like to serve yourself? The room went quiet. Tiny moment. Easy to miss. But I understood. Months earlier he had decided for me. Now he was asking. I smiled. Yes. He handed me the ladle. Linda wiped one eye before pretending she needed her napkin. Dinner moved slowly. Stories. Weather. Church gossip. The price of gas. American families over 60 can talk about gas prices with the seriousness of international diplomacy. Halfway through dessert, Rachel looked around the table. I think we're all different now. Linda nodded immediately. I hope so. Rachel turned to me. What did you learn from all this? Everyone looked at me. I took my time. Older people earn the right to answer slowly. I learned that fear can wear the clothes of love. Silence. And love without respect can become control. Daniel lowered his eyes. I reached for his hand before he could disappear into shame again. But I also learned something else. Rachel waited. So did I, Daniel whispered. I looked at him. He swallowed. I learned that protecting someone is not the same as listening to them. Nobody spoke. He continued. I spent years preparing to lose people. His fingers tightened around mine. I forgot to stay with the ones still here. Linda cried quietly. Rachel leaned against her husband. Our grandson kept eating pie gloriously unaware of emotional history. Life moves like that. One person breaks. Another reaches. A child asks for whipped cream. The world continues. Later that evening, everyone left. The dishes were done. The house settled into night. Daniel and I stood on the porch. Snow had started. Small flakes. Gentle ones. He looked up. I still think about that dinner. So do I. I keep seeing you switch the bowls. I smiled sadly. I know. Were you trying to punish me? I thought about it. The truth mattered now. Number. He looked surprised. I was trying to survive. His eyes filled. That's worse. Yes. He nodded slowly. Because it was. To realize the person who loved you had become someone your wife felt she needed protection from. That truth leaves marks. He turned toward me. I can't promise I'll never be afraid again. I don't need that promise. What promise do you need? I looked at the snow. The quiet street. The porch light. Our age. Our scars. Ask me, I said softly. He waited. If you're afraid. Pause. If you worry. Pause. If you think something is wrong. I looked directly at him. Ask me. His eyes closed. I will. And for the first time since the dinner table, I believed him. If you're listening tonight, maybe you know this kind of fear. Maybe you have watched someone age. Maybe you have worried in silence. Or maybe you have been the person others quietly worried about. Talk. Ask. Listen. Love people while they are still here. And if this story touched something in you, share where you're listening from and tell me what stayed in your heart. Sometimes strangers help each other carry things family cannot. Daniel squeezed my hand. Snow settled softly on the porch rail. The night held, and so did we.